We are Cross River Ventures Corp. We trade on the Canadian Securities Exchange under the symbol CRVC. There's our standard disclaimer about forward-looking statements. And I would say if you're a speed reader, go ahead and read it. But I think the most important thing at the bottom of this slide is the technical content in this presentation has been reviewed and approved by Dr. Rob Carpenter. He's a PhD. He's what we call a qualified person. And they make sure that the data that we present is factual, accurate, and can be relied upon. So that's good to see. We'll talk more about Rob as we move along. I mentioned check boxes, and when you when you place your bets, and I hate to say bets, but you're in Vegas, right, Jack?
Yes, yes. So yeah, I look at this as this. I look at these stocks, I mean, and all these stocks. It's speculation. You're making a bet, right?
Yeah. Now here's an analogy, a Vegas analogy for you. If you don't know much about craps, and you're in Vegas and you want to play craps, it's fairly complex. It's not an easy game. It's not like roulette. Craps, there's different betting, different odds, different things you can do. One way to be successful playing craps in Vegas, if you don't know the game real well, is to shadow or mirror the bets of the guys or the gals at the table who are doing well. So you can place your bets, move your chips alongside some of those better players, and you're going to expect to at least do as well as they do.
It's just like in stock, following the smart money.
Follow the smart money. And so, what do you look for in Explorer? Well, you got to look for a management team that has a combined experience or has the ability to market a company, raise capital. But more importantly to that, and you need a world-class technical team. And that's checkbox 2 here for us. Our technical team, who we'll talk a bit more about, I mean, they have significant discovery and proven exploration success under their belts. So these are people who've made world-class discoveries, understand how to find gold in the ground, and you've got to have that to have any kind of a reasonable shot at replicating that type of success. So we think our technical team is one of the best in Canada, and we'll get into that momentarily. Part of also one of the major things you need to see here is district scale, large project ground that give you the opportunity at these big deposit discoveries. And not only that, but you look for what we call pedigreed exploration projects. So these come from the people who find the ground and the people who vetted the ground, and these are in the right areas where you're typically going to find these large deposits. So we've met that. That check mark is there for a reason. And then we're gonna do something a little different. We're using a data-driven exploration strategy. One of the things you see in this business is sort of a rinse repeat cycle where companies will go in, they'll look for a little bit of historic work that's been done. They'll try to replicate that historic work, concentrate their efforts around where those gold showings have maybe been discovered or confirmed, and then try to raise money on that. And then it's hard to step out of that. And we're going to do that through focused project development. And we'll get into that as we get along here. The next slide is really a very important slide. What you're looking at here is a section of the Archean Superior Province, which is a very technical term for the right geology in northwest Ontario. It also stretches from Manitoba, basically stretches across Canada, but the real gold-bearing areas of the Archean Superior Province are really centered in Quebec and Ontario. This is what they call one of the sub-provinces. There's several, but this is the Uchi sub-province. And if we look over here, obviously everybody knows Red Lake, and there's been millions. Just millions and millions of ounces of gold pulled out of the ground there. And then we move east to, say, Pickle Crow, this area in here. But we're concentrated not only in these very prolific belts, but we've got projects down here as well. All of these brownish tan, I don't know, is that taupe? What's that color, Jack? That these are our projects. Okay, we have 28,000 hectares of ground. That's a district scale in anybody's book. We have a lot of shots here at the Big Win, but we're going to concentrate mostly the early exploration efforts, and the early work we're doing is going to be right in here. This is the Lang Lake Belt. We have really about 11,000 hectares in this belt. We control the structural elements of that belt, which is where you're going to find gold. And we'll zoom in on that here right now. The main thrust of the Lang Lake Belt is the McIver project. It's actually several projects that we've pieced together. We picked up McIver East in a private transaction with a company called Northern Dominion Metals, which was put together by Dr. Rob Carpenter and his team. So we acquired that ground, which is basically this part of McVicker. Actually over here a little more. Then we went and cut a deal with a company called Argo Gold, and we picked up the western half of this Lang Lake Belt, and that gave us more showings, more historic work. And now we've subsequently done another 4,000 hectare acquisition that puts together this 11,500 hectare McVicker project. So it's very large. You can see this trend here, this trend of the belt, that there's already lots of gold there. There's historic estimates, non-historic estimates here of 6 gram gold, 5 gram gold. The Golden Patricia mine was a historic producer, almost 700,000 ounces total of higher grade gold. So we're in the area where there's gold. Now you see these dots, all of these dots you see moving up through these trends. These are gold showings or gold occurrences. That's verified gold at surface and below surface through drill holes, through sampling, through channel sampling, and other things. And you see how many of these occurrences we actually have on our project grounds. So that's a really good sign. These are the prerequisites you need to see when you're looking for big deposits. There's a lot of verbiage on our current deck, and there's really no reason for me to go through all of it. Really, it backs up our technical analysis of why we think we're in the right area to do what we want to do. I think the main thing here is really to understand that this 11,500 hectare project covers the main structural elements of the entire belt. So we've got the folds, we've got the fault zones, the damage zones, the areas where gold deposition is likely to occur and has occurred. But we're in a real interesting situation, as a lot of the ground has just not been explored with any kind of real systematic, sustained efforts since the 90s. We'll go through that here. Again, this is another very technical graphic on McVicker. Again, we're going through the different gold showings and where they are, and you can see how they line up. There's more gold showings to be found here, but what's most important is to get an idea structurally of where these lines, these fault lines, occur. These cracks that you see through these projects is how gold seeps in. There was a mineralized event. Gold was a fluid, came in through these cracks. One of the tech team guys likes to refer to it as, if you grab a wet sponge and squeeze it, you're going to see the water come between your fingers. It's going to seep through your fingers, in the cracks between your fingers. That's essentially a very easy way to understand how gold deposition occurs. It's forced up through these cracks or these fault lines, and that's where it settles. So we know that it's there. We're going to find the best places to put those drill holes and make what we think will be an impactful discovery. Some historical drill results. Again, this goes back to BHP, a big multinational that was working in Canada in the early 90s. Almost 6.5 grams over 10 meters. It's a really, really good drill hole. Again, you've got 5.5 grams over 3.6 meters. All sorts of nice early runs. But they weren't really doing much work. I think. Again, you look here. There's the Cello Vein outcrop on McVicker Lake, where you have some really interesting numbers. You look down here. There were 34 channel samples taken in this area. The average grade of those channel samples was 28 grams per ton gold, which is a high grade return. Some of the samples were, bonanza grade, 578 grams per ton, 533 grams per ton. Those are eye popping. So we think the requisite amount of work has been done here, just enough to tease you, not enough for you to say, well, how did they miss it? They just didn't do enough work. And companies like BHP left Canada primarily because of events like BRIEX, which turned out to be a huge fiasco. This land's essentially been sitting dormant for 20 years. Another part of the portfolio is this Northern Dominion portfolio, which we acquired in November. Again, these are just some of the details on some of the projects. Again, it makes up about 28,000 hectares. It's a lot of ground. We're not going to go through all these summaries today, but people are welcome to do that. Just go to our website, click on the presentation. You can read about just the initial summary material on these projects. We have another project called Fuchsite. It's a joint venture earn-in with a company called Ethos Gold. We really like Fuchsite. It was really brought to our attention by Rob Carpenter, and it's one of our main projects at this point. I'm going to show you a couple things here real quick. These small gold showings that we see, there's 3 on this one map. I'm going to skip ahead. I want you to see where those gold showings are in relation to the black lines. Those black lines are interpreted faults on the Fuchsite property, but I want you to see, the proximity of these gold showings to those faults. These faults, again, as I mentioned, are the cracks where you're going to find gold deposition. The gold's going to leak from below through these cracks closer to surface, and it's not a coincidence that you see these yellow dots in close proximity to fault lines. So these structural faults are where you find gold, and again, Fuchsite shows that potential. We really think McVicker shows that potential as well. The Tassis Gold Project is another project we have, another large project. It's here in British Columbia. It's an early stage copper gold project. We're doing some work on it right now. There's some historic work that's been done in the area. We're just getting a better idea of the lay of the land right now. We've got boots on the ground and they're getting the work done. Our 2021 exploration plans are simple. Now, I'd love to be able to tell people today, hey, we'll be drilling next week. People like those types of catalysts and they tend to drive share price. But we're going to do this the right way. This is not necessarily a trade as much as it is an actual investment. And people have to understand the difference today between the two. And you and I can talk more about that as we get along here. But we're in the process at the moment of compiling all the historical data. Our geological team has, we have 2 PhDs and 2 masters. So we have the requisite expertise to go through this data. It's amazing what you can find when you go through, say, government files. And in between Q1 and Q2, we're going to be doing a lot of remote sensing data. These are airborne surveys. LIDAR is a laser survey, and these magnetic surveys, they're going to show us where these big fault lines are within our property boundaries. We're going to get on the ground in Q2, Q3, do a lot of field work, what we call ground truthing. This is prospecting, surface sampling, to verify that the imagery that we get from the airbornes is where we want to be. We'll get into drilling and follow-up sampling in the high priority areas through Q3 and Q4. So that's really the story here. We expect to get where we want by Q2, Q3. The story is really going to improve. We have, again, this is our management team. Myself, John Fraser, the president, Alex, the other Alex, the CFO. We have an experienced board. We've got a vice president of exploration who helps us out. We have an exploration manager who will show you here. This is the technical advisory team. Lori Peslowski, Dr. Rob Carpenter, Dr. Alan Wainwright, and Daniel McNeil. This is, I don't know if you want to use a baseball analogy maybe here, since we're talking sports today. But like a murderer's row. This is the 27 Yankees right here. I know I'm dating myself a bit, but we've got an all-star team here. These people have amazing success in the business. Rob's claim to fame, obviously, was the discovery of the multi-million ounce Coffee Gold Project deposit in the Yukon. It ended up being about 5 million ounces. He was the CEO of Kaminik from inception through the acquisition in 2016, Kamenik was acquired by Goldcorp for over $500 million. So that, again, these people, all of them have been involved with some major discoveries. And that's the kind of, we're going to rely on their expertise. They're critical to this entire operation, and we're happy and lucky to be involved with them. Another thing we should mention here is obviously capital structure. We're very early in our life as a public company. We IPO'd in July. We only have 21 million shares out at the moment. We're doing a raise right now, a broker financing in Canada, what they call a flow-through financing. So we'll be able to add more capital pretty quickly here for the exploration work in 2021. So we'll be funded to do all of it. And really what we'd like to do, I think shares outstanding is a very important number. We want to be in that 30, 35, under 40 million shares out when we get to what we hope is impactful discovery. And I think that's a perfect place to be. Demand should outweigh supply on the stock, and that's how you get your multiples. Again, Cross River Ventures, please visit the website, crossriverventures.com. And there you go, Jack. Now you have to get me back on screen. So
Okay.
I'm going to get out of this.
Okay, you're back. Alex, you're back. Okay, the slides are off.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's.
I ripped through that pretty quick here, but I want to make sure that we have our we get the message out and people understand the scale of the play.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the main thing. Is what I like to see. Look, last time, the first couple of times we had you for the Q&A format. Now we show everything on the screen so people can visualize. Some people
Yeah.
I'm a visual guy. I like to see the thing on the screen. So let's see if we have. Let's open up for audience Q&A.
Oh, Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A. We'll see if we have any questions today. Okay. I got George asking, how much is it going to cost you to drill? I guess maybe the follow-up. Do you have enough money to drill, or will you have enough?
Yeah, no. What we have right now, essentially, there will be drill money. We have about $700,000 in the bank. We're doing a $2 million raise here. We expect to sell that out. A lot of that money is going into exploration. But to really drill out something of significance, we're going to need to raise more money. We hope to be able to do that in a much more robust environment, i.e., the price of gold back, closer to 2,000. Our share price in a better place right now. We're trading that 35-cent Canadian range. We'd like to be, north of 40 or 45 and 50 if we're lucky. But that would be the ideal price point to do another big raise. But we should be able to raise another 2-3 million. I think drilling's going to come down to how much we have in the bank. How much drilling can we do? But an ideal budget might be in that $3 to $5 million range. And we know we already have institutional interest, some big check writers. So having guys like Rob on board and his team obviously makes those types of raises much more likely.
Okay, so I think you brought up an interesting point. Like at the last slide you showed, you basically you have the capital structure. You said that it's very important to have under 40 million shares outstanding when you make that big strike.
Sure, and I hate to do this because I do not want to compare us in any way, shape, or form to Great Bear Resources (GBR) on the TSXV. But everybody talks about what happened with them. First of all, they were outside of Red Lake, just south of Red Lake, in an area that wasn't necessarily, seen as a place that might hold a big deposit. They had 35 million out when they hit the big hole. They're a huge success story. And that might be, in fact, a generational find. So I'm not trying to compare us geologically to.
But you're in the same neighborhood, basically, though.
Yeah, we are absolutely. I mean, the
geologist came from Great Bear, right?
It's a different type of deposit over there. There's different names, technical names for these types of things. But we are in the right place to do something similar to what Great Bear did, and that is make an impactful, meaningful discovery. And we have the technical team to do it. We have the land size to do it. We're in the right neighborhood. We're the Nevada of the North, where we are, and everybody knows gold's history in Nevada. It's had a lot more work done and a lot more people involved down there than this particular area. So there are places in the planet here where you can find big deposits, and we feel we're in the right place, and it's not just us. There's a lot of other people in the area as well.
And how did now for some context, in terms of dollars, how did the Great Beer stock do? Once they made that big discovery.
Yeah, no, I mean it became a Canadian success story, a market success story overnight. I hate to admit that I actually own shares under $1. I happen to work in the building where some of the people work, one of the geologists, and I heard about it. And, yeah, I took a little piece in the open market, and I do what a lot of people do, and I made the classic mistake of being fatigued, and I said, I got to move that money into something else, and lo and behold. So that's a cautionary message here to people. And you and I had this. I used this analogy last time I spoke to you about the movie, and good movie starting right here, people. This is a good story. So take your position or grab your bucket of popcorn, sit back, and let the story play out. But don't make the mistake of leaving the theater. 20 minutes into the story. It's probably a bad idea.
Right. One of the big mistakes, like I like to say, look, like the stocks that we feature, they're kind of like, great, I'm going to run with what you're saying. Like these are, great movies, but this is like a multiplex because we have, multiple screens, and there's also thousands of other stocks. And a lot of investors, they make the mistake. They come in as the movie is about to start playing, they get and then they run into the next theater. They go, and they don't see, sometimes they don't see the whole, they get 2 minutes of one movie, 2 minutes of the other, but they're not getting the whole show. So
No,
I'm going to use that.
People like to talk about skin in the game. So management controls, insiders control almost, if not 10% of the company. Here's a really important point too. The technical team are shareholders. They're almost at a 10% threshold between them. And we have Argo Gold also is a 10% holder through our acquisition. So there's 30% of the float right there. 30% of the stock out today is held pretty tightly. And to see that management has skin in the game, we believe in this to the point where I'm buying in the open market. You can see that I'm buying the stock in the open market as the CEO, not because I'm trying to send these wonderful signals to people that people try to maybe manipulate the market by saying, oh, the CEO's buying. Listen, I'm buying it. I'm putting it in a bottom drawer here because I go back to that Vegas analogy. I'm fortunate enough to be working with people like Rob and his team, and I believe in them, and I believe in their ability to do what they do. And I'm very happy to put my money on this in this venture because I think we're going to be a success story in 2021. Absolutely.
For the Great Beer, though, how did that stock do? Went from like what was the trend?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me the actual numbers on the day of, I couldn't tell you that. I owned it under $1, and it's traded as high as $13-14 a share.
30 or 40?
No, 13 or 14.
13 or 14. Okay,
I can tell you right now, actually, what they're trading at today. I'll tell you right now, it's 16.72 today.
Oh, okay, not bad. Okay.
No, not bad at all. And listen, if I kept that position I had at 90 cents, that's a nice run right there.
So you're in the same area. You got some of the same. There's some similarities. There's a little bit of. I'm not saying that hey, this is going to be nobody can say that, but
everybody wants to be the next Great Bear.
There's enough there. Okay, let's get a couple questions here. We got now you mentioned a number of properties. Eric is asking which ones have the highest priority for you?
Yeah, 100%. That's McVicker. That's why I keyed on it in the presentation in the slide deck. It has very few companies can say they control an entire greenstone belt in the Archean Superior Province. And we do that. We have that. Now Lang Lake's not a massive belt, but 11,500 hectares in that belt. We're controlling all of the structural elements, all of the breaks, all of the folds, all of it under one consolidated land package. And that gives us an even better shot. Explorers are typically looked at as high risk, high reward. I would make the argument, and I think it's backed up by the data, and the people involved, that this is lesser risk, high reward. So I think it's important that people understand that we remove risk by location, by size, by the team, by the quality of the work that's been done to date. And there's a nice mix between the historical work is just enough to tell you there's something there, but not enough work where you're going, well, how could there be 1,000,000 ounces if everybody's done this work before? Right in that sweet spot where there's just enough to tell you, okay, this is compelling, and this ground was scouted by this technical group, and they didn't do it just to have a paycheck. They're doing it for that big, impactful, meaningful discovery.
Okay, interesting. We got Mr. B asking, can you touch on the
Sure.
MACD research
Yeah,
agreement?
absolutely. That came together over the last couple of days. Yeah, I don't know if Mr. B is Canadian or U.S. viewer, but in Canada we have something called flow-through opportunities, flow-through financings. It's a tax incentive. So if you invest $20,000 into a flow-through financing, you can write that $20,000 off of your income for the year. So we have funds up here that partake in these types of things. And a lot of retail investors do that as well. So this is typically, we're actually late in the flow through season this time, but we did a call the other day with some analysts and our technical team, and one of the analysts on the call was involved with Mackie, and they wanted to run as the lead broker, the lead bookmaker for this financing, which is what we call a brokered financing, and it's rare for brokered financings of this size to attach themselves to small market caps like Cross River. So that's a bit of a validation of the quality of the projects, quality of the team, that they're willing to take this to their network, which is a national network across west to east, across Canada, 160 desks internally for Mackie, and funds and high net worth investors. So for them to get on board with a backing like this, I think is a real validation of what we're doing and who's involved and our upside.
Okay. Let's see. When will drilling commence?
See, this is those questions people have. I'd love to tell you next week or next month, but that's not the case, and I'll tell you why. The old days, people used drills for early exploration work. It was costly. It was really not very effective when you consider how big a drill bit is, and the size of these land packages. So we're going to use Q1 and Q2 to run these airborne surveys to show us where these fault lines are, because this area has never been really flown with the technology that's available today, and LiDAR is one of those technologies that just wasn't available back in the 90s. So we're going to be able to do that here in Q1, Q2, get our drill targets identified, get on the ground in Q2, and make sure that these are, in fact, they're going to look at outcrops, they're going to look at some soil samples and some chip samples and rock samples, grab samples, and then we're going to go and we're going to drill. So I'd like to tell you Q2, more likely the summer months, the warmer months will be when we get into drilling, and it won't be a one rig small drill program. It'll be a multi-rig large drill program, because we want to make that impactful discovery, that moment, that catalyst before too long. And in today's age, a few months seems like an eternity for investors, because investors aren't investors anymore. They're more like traders. So I'm trying to tell people, look, this is an investment. This is not necessarily a trade or a flip. I think it's going to happen next week. We're going to be able to get out on a 5-cent profit. We're not here for that. We're here for a multi-bagger that's done through methodical, disciplined exploration with the right people.
Alex, our audience, they're very spoiled. They want these 5-10 baggers to happen like 2 weeks, 3 weeks maximum. They get very nervous if it's taking longer.
So did I, and that's why I dumped my Great Bear stock, under $1.
And it went up 14x from there.
Yeah, you gotta have some part of your portfolio.
Patience. We gotta have
patience. Bottom drawer, leave it there. We used to give explorers in this business, a year and a half, 2 years. You'd buy an explorer and you'd sit on it for 2 years and let them do the work, because you're buying into the team, you're buying into the plan, buying into the projects. Now it's such a day trading flippers world that, people lose sight of that. Now you can chase it up. You can chase it up all you want, buy in and out on the, on the peaks and dips. But really, honestly, the less stressful way to do this is to pick your best explorers before the market runs, take a position, and let them do the work. I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I think we've done everything right here.
Alex, on that note, I want to thank you, and we're going to have you back, hopefully very soon with some
Yeah, absolutely.
good news. And I want to thank you and everybody in our audience for joining. We'll see you on the next live stream.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. And if anybody has questions, hit us up with an email, and we'll get back to you immediately.
Thank you again.
Cheers.